Good evening. Hi. For those of you that I have not yet met, I'm Ms. Martin, principal here at Goshen High School. Welcome. Thank you for coming to such an important event and such an exciting event because it really starts us thinking about the transition from having high schoolers to having our college students who are bound to begin the rest of what will be their careers, their paths, and their own lives. So, our entire team of counselors has put together information, and that when I looked through is really clear and it allows you to see each part of the process. So, I encourage you to ask questions and keep the discussion ongoing, even past this evening. And they're all here for you. And if there's anything I can ever do, please don't hesitate to reach out. But again, thank you for coming and welcome to our presentation.
Good evening, and can you hear me good on both? Both, all right. So good evening. My name is Dina Lenz, and I'm one of the counselors here at the high school. And my colleagues here, we have Mrs. Laura Dubatoka, who's going to present after me, Mrs. Jacelyn Whiting, who will present after Mrs. Dubatoka, and Mr. Mejia, who will be our last presenter of the evening. Before we get started, I do want to make sure everyone picked up handouts. Although there looks like hundreds of handouts, there are really four main handouts. Our presentation, which is the PowerPoint, our senior guide that we give our students just to help guide them through this process. We give this to seniors, but we provided it tonight to you because there is so much information. We have a financial aid timeline. We get a lot of questions about financial aid. That timeline, you'll notice, is dated for this year because the timeline for next year is not released yet. So the information, if it's dated, will change, but the concepts won't. And then an opportunity for you to talk about and tell us about your student, the parent brag sheet. And these components will come up in the presentation this evening. And one little change I want to make note of, and you'll hear it again in the presentation, on the last page of the student guide that says Class of 2023, there's a flyer for our upcoming college fair. And below that it says Financial Aid Night at GHS is scheduled for October 5th. That date has been changed to September 28th. Unfortunately, I discovered today, thanks to my colleague Laura, that that is a holiday for our school district. So we moved that date very quickly today to September 28th. So I just want to draw your attention to that. All right. So we're going to start with some general information, and we are recording the presentation tonight, so you'll see us stay here at the podium, even though we prefer to walk around. But this way, our families who couldn't join us this evening will be able to watch this. And if you need to return to the information, the recording will be on our website, and you'll be able to access it there. So I already introduced the staff of the guidance department. Just want to draw your attention to our additional staff we have in our office, Mrs. Schaefer, who's our school social worker, and Ms. Keller, our school psychologist. We know that this is a very stressful time for your student as they plan for life after high school. And there may be times where, in addition to their school counselor, they just need some additional support. And then Mrs. DeSantis and Mrs. Gazer really run our office. They are amazing, and they'll be the first person you talk to if you call to speak to a counselor to set up an appointment. Your students interact with them here in the building every day. They're amazing. Okay, so I have a question. How many of you have had your students come home and say, my counselors are stressing us out in our English and social studies classes? Have they told you we've visited them a couple of times? Nobody? Uh-oh. So our juniors present to, our counselors present to juniors 3 times. The first session was March 1st. The second was March 22nd. And the third session is scheduled for Tuesday, April 5th. So our goal of spreading that college and career series over 3 sessions is to introduce your student to different areas of the college preparation that they need to focus on, but not all at once, because we know it's stressful and we don't want them to be too overwhelmed. This slide just shows you a little overview of the information that we cover. We review Naviance and the career module. The second session, students did the Strengths Explorer assessment. Naviance allows students to do career assessments, assessing their likes, their dislikes, personality, and then junior year, they do the Strengths Explorer to just help guide them to make sure the careers they're looking at are a good fit for them. We introduced them to all of these searches they could do in Naviance for colleges, and we're going to show you that some of that tonight as well. And then our third session dives into the college application timeline and also the college application process so that the students are ready to start their college applications in August, and that should be a goal of theirs. So one of the things that I know each of us has heard from families is, what do we do when? And as I was in the back, a parent said, this is my first child going through this process. So it makes sense that you need a timeline. So what you see here is starting in March and April. We ask that your students attend that college and career series in their English social studies class. They don't really have a choice. We go in and see them. Around that same time, counselors are conducting individual program planning meetings with juniors, and we'll talk more about that meeting in a minute. Register for SATs and ACTs. We are a test center here in May, so we really encourage students to register early so they can test at their desired location. We ask that students continue to research career options, especially if they're undecided. So rewind a little bit. Counselors introduced students to Naviance in ninth grade, and they did their first assessment called Do What You Are, which is now titled Personality in Naviance. Naviance went through an upgrade last summer, so the name changed. In 10th grade, they do Career Interest Profiler. So some students, even as ninth graders, know what they want to do. Some of our seniors are still trying to figure that out. So if your junior student is still unsure, Naviance has so many resources for them to really decide what it is I want to do for a career. Again, they do the Strengths Explorer assessment in Naviance and then begin researching colleges, but with all of these search options that Naviance has. And then for our student athletes, our potential college student athletes, they should be completing the NCAA eligibility process if they haven't already. So May and June, take that SAT or ACT, depending on what test students would like to take. Begin college visits. Schedule summer visits and tours. And believe it or not, write a draft college essay. We really encourage juniors to break down this. I always tell students, it's like a research project. You're going to break it into pieces so you don't feel overwhelmed in the fall. Request a letter of recommendation from at least one teacher this year, maybe two, if they think they will need to. Complete the autobiography and parent brag forms. There's one of those forms that you have with you tonight that you could actually fill out and send in with your student to their school counselor. July and August, visit colleges and really decide what colleges are on my list. Which colleges do I see as potential locations for me in the fall after I graduate? After August 1st, the Common Application becomes available to students, so we encourage them to create an account and get started with the demographic information. Review that draft essay that they wrote in the spring and see if they need to make any adjustments or edits. Create or update a resume, which Naviance has a resume builder for our students. And then take or repeat the SAT or ACT. A few years ago, the SAT started summer testing, and there's an ACT in July as well. So some students, especially those who are very, very involved, will take the test in the summer so that they don't have to worry about, do I have a game or practice, or I just started my senior year and I'm a little overwhelmed. Fast forward, they're now seniors, September, October, meet with the school counselor for their senior meeting, work through that common application, keep working on that, finalize that college essay and match their common app with Naviance, request letters of recommendation officially through Naviance, and you're going to hear more about all of these pieces as everyone comes up to present. Attend financial aid night, again, that'll be September 28th, the end of September, and then attend the CASDA College Fair at GHS, and that date is October 12th, and complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid That application becomes available October 1st. November, December, take or repeat SATs, finalize and submit college applications. That may sound early, but we tell students, especially those of you who know where you want to apply early, even if you're not doing early decision or early action, and you'll hear more about that as well. And then begin researching scholarships. There's the benefit of filling out that college application early. I can now move on and look at scholarship opportunities. And be sure, we can't stress this enough, check your email. The students need to check their email box frequently for college correspondence. And I'm going to stress personal email, because they should transition to a personal email as they are working on college applications. January through March. So we've made it through the college applications. We started researching scholarships. Students are going to continue completing applications. Maybe they found an additional school to apply to, or maybe they weren't quite finished yet. They will complete the Goshen High School Common Scholarship Packet. That is usually released in February. And then continue completing other scholarship applications as they become available, and as your student receives responses from colleges. Not to stress you out, we just went through the whole senior year. They're going to update those responses in Naviance. So were you accepted, waitlisted, deferred, denied, and then also set their attending college in Naviance at a later date. So we just made it through the whole senior year. Let's get more detailed information. So Naviance Careers module. On the screen, you have a snapshot of what the Naviance Career module looks like for those students who are still trying to determine what career makes sense to me. What career do I see myself being happy in? Naviance allows the student to use the data from their assessments to locate potential careers, or to say, this is what mom does, this is what dad does, this is what I've heard about, this is what I think I'm interested in. They can type the title in, and you'll see that the titles, like accountants and auditors, is highlighted green, greenish teal. That's a link. The students can very easily click on each of the careers and get more information about that specific career. What skills do I need to have? What knowledge, what tasks does this person perform in their job? Also salary. And for a lot of our students, they go right to the salary. How much can I make? How much money am I going to make? Because I don't want to live with my parents forever. And then the colleges module. So there is so much information, and there's a lot of screens that you'll see when Mrs. Dubatoka, I think, or Mrs. Whiting is here. But this is a screenshot of all of the features in Naviance, the careers module. And this is the part of Naviance that we reminded students to use when we went in for session 1 of that college and career planning. They can search for colleges, they can save colleges they're thinking about to their own list so they don't have to keep searching over and over again. They can do super matches where they put a lot of information in about colleges that's important to them. I mentioned individual meetings with school counselors. So each year the school counselors meet with your student one-on-one to talk about their progress towards graduation, their future plans, their diploma type. I always tell students, you're driving the meeting. Like, the counselors have an agenda that we need to get through. We want to make sure we touch on these points, but then it becomes it's your students' meeting. So some students, especially as we transition to the senior meeting, will say, I need help with the Common App, or I'm not sure how to request that letter of recommendation from my teacher. Can you help me with that? So once we get through our little agenda of things we want to cover, your student really guides that meeting for us. And I don't think I left anything out there. Okay, so something your students should have hopefully already done, or it's on their to-do list, is registering for the SAT or ACT. And you'll see that the next SAT date is May 7th. That test is here at Goshen High School, and the registration deadline is April 8th. And on the other side, we see the next ACT is June 11th with a registration deadline of May 6th. So the additional dates that are lower on the screen are anticipated, and once those dates are confirmed, they're available for registration at the College Board and the ACT website. So again, we always encourage students to register early so that hopefully they can test here at Goshen where it's familiar, takes out one piece of the stress that morning of the test. I know where I'm going, I know the room numbers, and I know the people who will be greeting me that morning. Students really have to pay attention to the details when they register for the test to make sure they're following the rules. And also, the information they're providing the test registration site. So an example I've seen before is a parent registering their student as if the parent was taking the SAT. That will cause a problem on test day. And students' names spelled wrong, things like that could cause a problem, up to being prevented from testing when you arrive at the test center, especially if you're testing at another location where they don't know you as a student. Students can repeat these tests as many times as they want, and it's so important that students make sure that they request their official scores from the testing agency be sent to the colleges they're applying to. The guidance office cannot release that information. That has to be official right from the College Board or ACT directly to the colleges. And it's so important to watch those application deadlines to make sure that those scores that are sent will be received by the college deadline. One more point there, test optional. Your students may be saying, the test optional, I don't have to take the SAT. So a lot of schools have committed to being test optional for the next application cycle, which is your seniors next year. And students have to determine, do I submit my scores or not if their schools are test optional? Just a little side-by-side comparison of those two tests. Either one's fine. Colleges will accept either one. Some students feel like they might prefer one over the other, but they're both testing their knowledge through their junior year. And here's just a little more information about the registration. You see a picture of a young man on the screen there. When students register, they have to upload a picture into the site. That's for security. And it has to be just what you see there, just my head, no other people, no other pets, nothing else. And I have to be clearly visible on my registration admission ticket in order to be admitted to the test. Some mistakes our students, not our particular students, not our students, make. And that concludes part 1 of our presentation, and Mrs. Dubatoka will start with part 2.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Again, my name is Laura Dubatoka. So I bet when you went to kindergarten registration, right, and they said your child was going to be the class of 2023, we finally made it, right? We're finally here. So just to highlight what's on the screen, I think you got a copy of this in a letter that we mailed home. The Orange County Counselors Association is having their 66th annual college fair at SUNY Orange. As that date gets closer, we should have a list of the colleges that will be attending. We're all members of this association. We're very proud to be part of this event. This is the longest running college fair in the United States. So it's a good kind of kicking off this whole college search and getting your child used to talking to adults about themselves, asking questions. So I encourage you to attend this event. So the college search, some important factors. As we mentioned before, in our helping your student to research careers and majors, that's one of the things that you could put when you're trying to do a search. Not all students know that at this time, though. I know when I'm meeting with kids and they're not really sure, what I usually start with is, let's talk about the distance from home. I encourage my students to start that conversation with mom and dad. How far away from home do you think you'll be comfortable? You might have a large family that likes to get together a lot. If you're too far from home, you may not be able to get there for all those events. So something to consider. And like when I'm showing students, sometimes I like to pull up the map of New York and the surrounding area, because you could find, like, here's Orange County, and you might want to go to Buffalo, but let's see how far away it is. So distance from home, I think, is a good starting point. Selectivity is also something that you'll look at. So as you're going through Naviance and starting to research colleges, you'll see the percentage of students that are accepted. So the lower the percentage, the more selective that college is. Of course, you can research the costs. So you'll find in your research that the state schools and our SUNY system, State University of New York, and the CUNY system, City University of New York, you'll find that those institutions cost less because they're supported by us, the taxpayer. You'll see that private schools, their costs may be higher, but many times private schools have more money to give. So you might not want to rule them out. Another thing I ask students is like to look at the size of the college. You know, a lot of times our kids will say, I want to go to a big school. I want to go where they have a lot of sports, where I can be, you know, a part of that scene. But sometimes we need to see that, you know, we're not really ready and we need a little more individual attention. I'll usually point out to our students that if you're going to a big school like Buffalo or Stony Brook, your freshman English class could be held in a room the size of this room. You might be one of 300 students for that one professor. So if you're not as outgoing and you might not feel comfortable seeking out your professor for extra help, that might not be the setting for you to start out your college career. Housing availability, definitely like freshman year, that's something that I would be looking for, a guarantee of housing on campus. Usually after freshman year, students are starting to move off campus, they make friends, they get an off campus place, but it's, you know, it's really important to have a place to live while you're there. And then the other things that make college fun, maybe you're interested in sports, extracurricular activities. Do they have a career services office that can help you with an internship, co-ops, something that as you're getting towards the end of college, that might help you to resume writing and to help you on your way in starting that career. Special programs and services, things like ROTC, and of course supports for our students with disabilities in college. Lots of factors. So when you're researching potential colleges, you know, we're partial to Naviance. Naviance, you can do an advanced search. I'm going to show you a couple of slides as we go further. Something called a SuperMatch. What I like about Naviance is the best is that it has data from many years of Goshen High School graduates, where they applied to, where they were accepted, what their GPAs were, what their SAT scores. So it gives you more information than you could find on other search engines like Princeton's Review, College Board. They're great, they do a great job, but ours is a little more personalized towards our students. So helping you make thoughtful decisions about where might be a good place for your student to apply. Of course, the college's websites, and we'll show you a little bit in the next few slides about that. College admission online events. So especially during COVID, we didn't have a choice, right? We couldn't get together. We couldn't have college fairs in person. We couldn't have rep visits. It was hard. You couldn't take an on-campus tour. So some of these things, although things have gotten better and have opened up, having online events is still kind of has stayed around. So there is that option. You can find online college fairs if you say, well, maybe I'm not comfortable going to a big event like what might happen at SUNY Orange. Through the National Association of College Admission Counselors on their website, they have online college fairs. The SUNY website, you could also find online college fairs that you can participate in. And college visits. I can't stress enough that your child will really get to know how they feel out of school by putting their feet on the campus. You know, I ask my students to go, when they go to the dining hall, go have lunch there because you're going to live there. That's the food you're going to be eating. You're going to want to know if you like it. It's not mom's home cooking. So there's nothing like going on a college tour. If you're not busy over spring break coming up, it's a good time because college spring break seems to be over now, and they're not going to be there for usually by the middle of May. College is over. I took my own children to see colleges in the summer, but it's a little different experience. You know, they're doing renovating. You may not be able to see the dorms. The dining hall is going to be closed. You're not going to see it with students. So if you can get out there, we encourage you to. Our students get 3 excused absences from school because we want to encourage them to attend these events. You might have an alumni, someone in your family that's already out of college that can host you and take you around. That's great too. We have college rep visits that come to our school, particularly that had been only in the fall, so it was mostly seniors that were doing it. But this spring, some colleges reached out to us and they said, "Hey, can we come in the spring?" So it's great. You'll be able to, on the Naviance website, on the homepage, when your child logs in, there's a list on the right hand side of all the colleges that are coming to Goshen High School. So and they're coming to see juniors. Seniors have pretty much made their decision. So we schedule them to come during lunch periods so we feel that they can reach the most students that way. So if you weren't aware of that, take a look at that and see if there might be some colleges that your child might want to meet with. And if they're not comfortable meeting with the rep, they can ask their guidance counselor. None of us have a problem sitting in on a meeting like that with one of your students. So this is just one of the pages, a resource from Naviance. This is a college maps page. So we have up here the top 20 most popular colleges where students apply from Goshen. You can see most of them are SUNY schools. We have, with the exception of Mount St. Mary's, that's in our county, and NYU. All SUNY schools. But you can look up schools other ways. Like you could see historically black colleges, Ivy League, Jesuit schools, etc. So they're kind of grouped, and this is like the map that I was telling you about. So you could see kind of where Orange County by Orange County Community College, and you can see, yeah, some of these colleges are, although they're in New York State, Plattsburgh might be in New York State, but a college in Philadelphia is still a lot closer. So you don't want to just maybe rule out some neighboring states to look at some schools. So this is the search that I think really will give you the best information. It's called the SuperMatch. It's under the colleges tab in Naviance. So you could see choose fit criteria, location. We talked about that before. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can pick states. You could pick a region, like you could say the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, or as we did in this sample search, 500 miles from Goshen. So I tried to figure that 500 miles at driving at like 70 miles an hour. So that's like 7 hours away. So I know when my kids were looking at college, my criteria was we have to be able to get there in a day and back. So 500 miles would have been too much for me, but it might not be for you. Like a plane ride might be okay for your family, but kind of gives you an idea, and could just draw a circle around Goshen and see how far you're willing to go. You could put a major institution type, so that again would be public or private schools. Student body size, like do you want a campus that has over 20,000 students, or do you think you'd be more comfortable in a setting maybe about 5,000? You can put that in. Again, if you're looking for on-campus housing, gender concentration. So if I'm looking for an all female college, or if I'm looking for a co-ed school. So those are all must-haves, right? We're saying those in my choices, I have to have all of those things in my college search. Nice to have. This student, sample student, would be putting in some athletics. So based on that search, if you could see, your results included 250 institutions that fit the score of 90%. So you might want to go back and add a few more criteria. 250 schools is a lot. You may want to go back and maybe refine that location. But just as a sample, you could see here the kind of information you can find out. Just on this sample page, St. John's University, that's a fairly local school, not too far in Queens, and Salisbury University, which is a state school in Maryland. They're kind of similar of what you could see. Their acceptance rate is the same. Their tuitions, you could see, are different for an in-state student and an out-of-state student, but their average class size is similar, even though they're quite different in size. St. John's is about twice the size of Salisbury University. So you could see all the different types of information that you could start to learn. But what is so unique for Naviance and for our school is under where it says academic match. So you could see, for example, under St. John's, their average GPA for their freshman admitted class is a 3.5. Um, this sample student we have, their GPA is a 3.3. So you can see that this is a pretty good match. The SAT score that St. John's was looking for, their average was a 1081. This student is an 1150. So we can see this student exceeds what St. John's is looking for. So this might actually end up being a good match. So this, again, on the right-hand side, we're just showing you like what the criteria were and if, like for instance, for Manhattanville College. So the size of the school, how many students are living on campus. We put in a computer science as a degree program, men's golf. So it's not 500 miles from Goshen, only 41 miles. So that would be doable for me. So then from there, you could click on the college. And so we use SUNY Albany here as an example. So you can get a little more in-depth information now. You could go directly to SUNY Albany's website here from Naviance. You could start your application directly here. And then there are some tabs across the top where there's an overview. You could look up the course of study. You can learn about student life, admissions requirements, and of course the costs that are involved in attending a school like SUNY Albany. So I'm not sure if you could see this clearly from back there. We have a few things on this slide, but in the top left-hand corner, that just shows you taking courses that could help you be successful at SUNY Albany and successful with being admitted. So it lists the type of courses in the subject area, the years that are required, and then the years recommended. And I'm noticing more and more when I'm looking at this with students, they may require, like, for example, 3 years of math, but they're recommending 4 years of math. So for me, I would probably lean towards trying to meet the requirements of what's recommended. You want to, if this is a school you're really interested in, you want to meet or exceed what they're looking for. On the next slide, directly across it, under studies and bachelor's degree, it will list all the different types of degree programs that SUNY Albany has. And then on the bottom, this overview says how you compare to other students from Goshen High School who've been accepted to SUNY Albany. So you could see how on track you are to maybe being accepted there too. This is my favorite. I really think this is such an excellent tool. So we did this for another SUNY school, SUNY Geneseo, which really, if you're looking at these scores, you could see Geneseo is almost very close to like an Ivy League school, very selective. So along the left-hand side of this graph, you could see GPAs, and along the bottom are SAT scores. So all the check marks are students from Goshen High School over the years that have been accepted to SUNY Geneseo. And you could see we've highlighted one student, that check mark. So you could see out of a 1600 SAT score, they had a 1370 and their GPA was a 93.94. So you could kind of judge where you are. The little person in the circle, that's our example. So you could see they're not in the high end of this scattergram, but there are people around them who have been accepted, or those purple circles are people who were waitlisted. The red X's are people who were not accepted, students who applied and were not accepted to Geneseo. So you can't get that kind of information on the College Board because that's not specific to our school. So college application types and deadlines. Early decision, you may have heard of that before. So early decision is a binding commitment. Your student can apply to one school, early decision. part of the application, the parent has to sign it, the student signs it, and myself, or as the counselor, have to sign it. And what we're saying is that we understand if we are accepted, we must attend. That's the pledge that we're making. Okay, so you really have to know that in November, that this is a school that you want to attend in August when you would start. So not a lot of students apply early decision. Some do, but you really would need to know, and you really need to do a lot of homework beforehand. Early action is different. You can still apply early. It's pretty much the same deadline. Still getting your work done early, but it's not binding, and you can apply to many schools that have early action. You will get your decision back usually within a month, but you do not have to commit to any of those schools until the regular deadline, which is usually May 1st. I know we were getting emails today that said March 31st. Today was the day a lot of students were going to hear about their acceptance. So hopefully we're hearing a lot of good news tomorrow. Other ways that students apply: regular decision. I find like most students are doing regular decision. Those deadlines are usually around January 1st. And so you would apply, and those are the students that applied regular decision we're hearing today if they were accepted. Rolling admission is how that works is the school accepts applications on an ongoing basis. They review them right away when they come in, and within a few weeks they release their information of whether you've been accepted, and they do that until they have filled their freshman class. So it's really important. What I tell students, this is the grown-up world applying for college applications. These are real deadlines. So you might have a deadline with a teacher who might accept something late, but college applications, it's a firm deadline. So to keep track of those. And here at the high school, we request a 10 business days, or really it's like 2 weeks of school to process your students' materials to get them out. So you'll see in a future slide, we're going to give you a breakdown and a timeline. And that's for scholarships too. So, here's the next slide. So early decision applications are and early action are November 1st, November 15th. So that's the deadline. So for a November 1st deadline, these are all the materials that we would need from your student. We need a signed transcript request form. That gives us permission to release your child's transcript to that college. A student autobiography, which it's some questions that help us in writing our letter of recommendation for your student. That parent brag sheet that you were picking up tonight, and teacher recommendation forms that your student would give to the 2 teachers that they asked to write for them. So look, if all of that material we would need by October 17th. So October 17th, that's like 6 weeks into school. So that's why we're saying a lot of work. Ms. Lenz mentioned August 1st is you can start filling out your applications by August 1st. Something we're going to talk a little bit more about, the Common App. Like if your child went home tonight and you said, "Oh, start your Common App," they would think they were applying for college now for this August. So wait till August 1st, and then they can start filling it out. So you could see these are deadlines that come every 2 weeks, and we do have those on the information that we put out to the students on the transcript request form. And I'm going to introduce Mrs. Whiting. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. So you've heard a lot about the research process, and I'm going to go through with you the actual application process. And as Mrs. Dubatoka mentioned, your students can actually start applying as early as August 1st. And it is a good idea for them to start the application, even if they're not ready to submit it in August or September or even October. If they can just start the application, because what's nice is they can actually do a little bit at a time. And we find that if they do that, it's a lot less stressful on them and on you as well. So there are many different components of the college application.
You'll hear from us and from your students and from the colleges themselves about the common application. We also call it Common App. So we're not referencing an app, it's just how we shorten that word, application. But the students are using that to actually apply to the colleges. Sometimes there are supplemental applications as well that go along with certain colleges. There's usually a college essay that the students have to write. Sometimes they're asked to submit a resume. There are letters of recommendation that go along with this also, usually from two teachers. And we usually tell our students, ask teachers that know you really well, that know you as a student, that have seen you in the classroom for at least a year, sometimes more than one. And usually it's good to get one from a content area that's related to what they want to study once they get to college. We, the counselors, also write a letter of recommendation for the students, so that's part of the application process. And of course, we send out the high school transcript. We also send a school profile, and that tells the colleges a little bit about what Goshen High School is all about. And then in the middle of the year, after we finish the second semester here, we send out what's called a mid-year report. And that is something that the colleges sometimes wait for in order to make their decisions. They're waiting to see the students' scores in all of their classes at halfway through senior year before they make that decision. So the common application. So what this is it's one application that's accepted by about 900 colleges across the entire country. This makes the students' lives much easier. They fill out their application one time, as long as the college takes this. So they can fill this out one time and send it off to multiple different colleges. Now, each time they send it off to a college, of course, there's a fee, and the college fees can range. Can be anywhere from $30 all the way, I've seen up to $75. But this process does make it easier because they're not going from one application to another to another. Generally, they're using this and sending it out to multiple different schools. So as you heard, this application, the common application, it will open up to your students in August, and they can begin in August just to get a little bit of a head start. So part of the common application, the students are required to write an essay. They are given some options. They're given actually 7 different choices to choose from with the common application, and they have plenty of time to look at the questions. They could write a draft. They can share the draft with an English teacher if they want some feedback. They can share the draft with you. It's a great idea for them to have someone read it over before they actually say, this is my finalized essay, because once they upload it and once they submit, they can't go back and redo it. So this one general essay that they use on their common application is read by all the colleges that they're applying to with the common application. When they write their essay, we really encourage them to let themselves shine through their essay. Tell the college something about yourself that they might not see in your transcript. Let the college know something about yourself that they might not hear from a teacher. This is their chance to really stand out. Sometimes the colleges want to know what the students have done throughout the last couple of years of high school. So in Naviance, we actually have, there's a really nice feature there. It's a resume builder. It's super easy and super friendly user for the students. They can make their own resume and it comes out completely professional looking. They can use it for a job interview as well. So on their resume, what they can include is everything they've done since 9th grade. This could be athletics, could be clubs, extracurricular activities, volunteer service, part-time job, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, youth groups. So things that they've done in school as well as outside of school. And the colleges are looking at this in terms of what the students have done in high school, because they're trying to predict what type of student they will be once they get onto their campus. So this is an important piece to the college application. we, the counselors, and also the teachers, we also value the resume because there's things that our students do maybe outside of school that we're not aware of. So having that resume when we write our letters is also super helpful to us. So the teacher recommendations, there's a little bit of a process for this. And we go over this with the students several times so that they're super clear on what they should be doing with the teachers. So first of all, they should have a little conversation with the teacher and ask them to write a letter of recommendation. They also fill out a form, a paper form, and they'll hand it to the teacher, letting them know where they're applying and what the deadlines are. And then the last step is with Naviance, the students actually select the teacher in Naviance, and the teacher gets an electronic notification that the student is requesting a letter. So just to be completely clear and backtrack a little bit, the common application is how the students apply to the colleges, but we use Naviance to submit the letters and the high school transcript. So they're two separate entities. Eventually they do join together. We show the students how to match them up, but that piece is sometimes a little bit confusing, so I just wanted to be clear on that. And when the students are asking teachers for letters of recommendation, the teachers are usually writing about the class performance. They might write about the students' participation in class, if they got their work done on time, how they worked with other peers in the classroom. So they're giving really honest feedback to the colleges about what they saw in that student while they had them in class. In Naviance, like I said, the teachers are uploading the letters into Naviance, and then they're submitted electronically to the colleges. And students can also say thank you to the teachers, either in person or with a little note, once that recommendation letter is all complete. So this is a little screenshot of what the Naviance screen looks like for your student. So this student went into Naviance, they went down the list of teachers. You can see the teacher's name that's highlighted there. That's the teacher that the student is requesting. So the student hits the submit button here on the screen, and right away that teacher gets a notification that they're being asked for a letter of recommendation. We also ask the students to give the teachers at least 2 weeks to write letters. The fall gets really busy for all of us with the college application season. So we always tell the students, as much time as you can give the teachers and to us, it's always helpful, just because we're getting lots of requests for these letters. So when we write our letter of recommendation for our students, we do ask the students to complete a student autobiography, and we can give that to them when we meet with them. It's several questions that they answer. They're personal questions. We don't share that with anyone. It's just for our own review. We read it over as we write our letter. It doesn't get sent out to any colleges. We ask them to complete the resume if they haven't done that already. And then you, as parents and guardians, can complete the brag form. And again, we don't share that, but we use it when we write our own letter just to gather some more background information. And then the transcript request form is actually a paper form that the students fill out. They have to sign it, and you, as the parent and guardian, have to sign it as well. That gives us permission to send the transcript out to the colleges. So all of these pieces are all sent electronically. It's very rare now that we actually have to put something in the mail. There's really only, I think this year I only sent out maybe a handful of things in the actual physical mail. Everything is done electronically. So we talked a little bit about when students take the SAT or the ACT, the standardized tests. These scores are not put on the high school transcript at all. So the only way the colleges will know if the student took the test, and the only way they can see the scores, is if the students actually submit their scores directly to the college. So if your students haven't registered yet for the SAT, but they're thinking about doing that soon, and they know 4 colleges that they might be applying to, they can actually list those colleges as they do their registration, and the scores will be sent at no cost. That's a little, I guess, money saving tip right there, because each time you send scores out to the colleges, you do have to pay a small fee. And students have the choice of what scores they want to send to the colleges. So if I'm a student and I take the SAT 3 times, but I only like the scores from the second time I tested, I could choose to only send that second set of scores. If I scored best in the reading section on my first try, but best in math on my last, I might send all of my scores to let the colleges see how I did across the board. So again, this is a little recap of the documentation that we send out. The high school transcript, that's super important. That's telling the colleges all about their academic record, every single high school course they've taken, every single Regents exam. Their GPA is printed on the transcript, as well as their 6 semester decile rank. The school profile is a separate document. We send that out as well, and that tells the colleges all about the high school. For instance, how many honors courses we have, how many AP courses we have, what athletic and extracurricular activities we have. It gives the colleges a snapshot into the high school that our students are coming from. And then, as I mentioned before, the mid-year reports, those happen in February once we've finished the first and the second quarters. We submit those automatically for the students. They don't have to come back to us in the middle of the year and ask us to do that. We will do that as soon as the second quarter ends and we have all those grades in. Again, it gets submitted electronically through Naviance. So this is a little snapshot of what the Naviance screen might look like for your senior. And if you look right up on top there, it says colleges I'm applying to. And on the right side, there's a little button there that says match accounts. And this little button becomes super important in this whole process. And this is sometimes a step that the students get a little hung up on. And this is when we say, don't panic, come in and we'll help you. Because in order for this process to work, as I mentioned before, we have to match the common application with Naviance. So this little button that you see up on that screen, that's what does the trick here. That's what brings those two programs together so that the application can be submitted to the colleges and that their transcript and letters and school profile can get submitted electronically as well. And as you can see here in this little snapshot here, this student here, you can see there's 2 colleges listed there. The little CA symbol on the bottom, that means the student used the common application. And the college at the very top, there's a little line through that common app symbol. And that means the student went directly to that college's website and applied directly online through that college's online application. But in this screen, you can also see a notation that the application was submitted. So there is that for the students too. They can see when something is submitted. They can see when the teacher letters have been submitted as well. And if they ever have questions about that, they could always come in and see us because we could pull it up from our side as well. So just a couple of additional points. It's super important for the students to be aware of all their deadlines because we do need this information to be requested from us at least 10 school days or about 2 weeks before their first deadline. Without that transcript request form that's signed by them and signed by you, we can't release anything to the colleges. Once the students find out where they've been accepted and they start to get responses from the colleges, we do ask that they enter their information into Naviance, and we do keep track of that. So we want to know where they've been accepted, if they've been denied, if they've been waitlisted. We always survey the students towards the end of the year. So for your students, this will happen next May. That'll be towards the end of their senior year. At that point, they will know where they've been accepted. They will know where they're going to be attending. And we survey them so that we know where to send their final transcript to. The final transcript will indicate their date of graduation, the type of diploma that they have, and the colleges need that final transcript. So the colleges need that final transcript before the students can begin their first year of college. So our next part, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Mejia, who's going to talk about financial aid, scholarships, and some final points.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Whiting. And thank you, parents, for sticking it out with us. All right, so first up, for the student athletes. So it's important that all potential student athletes communicate with the school counselors and let us know ahead of time that they're planning on playing sports in college, because there is a little bit of a process that they need to take, that they need to undertake while they're going through this process. So students must have taken approved coursework in high school in order to be academically eligible. All potential student athletes must register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. This is actually the homepage of that website. This is what it looks like. Once registered, students have to complete 2 release forms and submit them to the guidance office. And that basically allows us to submit a transcript to the NCAA on their behalf. And again, that form has to come to us, within a timely manner for us to make sure that we send it out before any important deadlines. A couple of things with financial aid and scholarships. Financial aid night, which again, that date was changed to September 28th. That's going to be coming up obviously in September. Any aid and scholarships, there's a lot of opportunities for financial aid that comes across our desks, and there's opportunities for students as well. We provide students with different websites, which are going to be mentioned in one of our future slides. There's also scholarships that are eligible for students that they can apply directly to the colleges, and those are need-based, merit-based, and can also be based on special talents, whether a student is an athlete or whether they're a musician or anything like that. And then we also have community-based scholarships. We have that common scholarship application, which is a collection of about 35 to 40 scholarships that are strictly for Goshen High School students. And we've actually made it into a Google form that students can go ahead and submit. They can just re-enter their information over and over again and apply to as many scholarships as they believe they are eligible for. That's usually made available to students in February, and the deadline is sometime in mid-March. This time around, we actually had over 600 applications, so it was a pretty big undertaking from our department and also on the student side. But we had over 600 applications, and so at that point, those scholarships get sent out to various committees, and then we find out at awards night and things like that who gets those scholarships. It's a pretty big undertaking, and there's a lot of steps in that process. There's also the Community Foundation of Orange and Sullivan. So that's also a collection of about 20 or so scholarships that get uploaded into Naviance, and students can go in there and apply to different ones. There's one particular website that the students will go to, and they can go ahead and submit their applications to those. All right, so the screenshots you see up here, that's the FAFSA form. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. I just want to highlight the word free in that because there's obviously websites out there that sometimes are trying to scam parents and families out of their money. So the FAFSA form is always a free application, and it ends in .gov. So make sure that you're always on that right website and not providing your information to any other website. So for the FAFSA, the student will actually make a profile, and the parents will actually be required to make a profile as well. The reason why the parent has to make one is because at the end, you're required to sign it along with your student. Okay, so there's two profiles that need to be created for that. Okay. So this is the New York State Tuition Assistance Program. Those screenshots that you see up there. This is another way that students can get various grants and different state aid. This is also the same website that the Excelsior Scholarship would be made available to parents. That's called the Higher Education Services Corporation, or HESC. So the Excelsior Scholarship is a scholarship that's available to students as long as the families make under a certain amount, and it covers tuition costs to SUNY and CUNY schools. So that's State University of New York and City University of New York. So again, it would be the same website, but this is also where the families would do the TAP program, or the tuition assistance program, and that's how they would qualify for state aid. Okay. So the screenshots that you see up here is what's in Naviance. And these are scholarships that we as counselors, we actually upload into Naviance, and we provide students with the link, also with the amount, the criteria. We usually provide, if there's an application, we usually upload it right into Naviance. And this gets updated on a pretty frequent basis. So we do encourage students to always go back and check, because what you see in one particular week might not be what you see in a different week, right? Because we always upload anything that comes into our emails or anything that comes across our desk. Okay. I mentioned this GHS Common Scholarship application packet. Again, it's not really a packet. Everything is now electronic, but it is a Google form that we make available to students where they can apply to a number of scholarships using one application. And this one is, again, strictly for Goshen High School students. So you're not competing against students from the county or students all across the country. This is strictly for Goshen High School students. The ones that are here in Naviance, for the most part, are local and regional. So you're competing with students from districts in our area. All right, so this is what it looks like, just kind of a sample list. The ones on the right-hand side, so you see those are the scholarships that are there. Obviously, we have more than this. Again, we had a collection of about 35 scholarships. The timeline is usually around this time of the school year. Our deadline was actually last week. It was March 22nd. Most of the applications came in about a week before that, or a few days before that. And again, we had a record number of applicants this year, so it was pretty insane how many students applied. All right, so these are some links that again are in the handout that you guys have here. The FAFSA website is up here for you guys. That TAP website is up there. FastWeb is a scholarship sort of search engine that we encourage students to routinely check. Those are for national scholarships. So again, your students will be competing with students pretty much all across the country. The State University of New York actually does different workshops for parents. So that link on the top right corner will actually bring you to a list of workshops that are available to families. All right, and College Board, which is the same website that families use for registering for the SAT, also has a scholarship sort of opportunity, sort of like a database that you guys can use for that. Okay. So again, different events that we do provide for students. We do a college application help session, and usually we do that during period 10, which is from 2:21 to about 2:47. We usually do that in the fall. We also do financial aid night, which we've mentioned a few times now. Again, that date is changing from October 5th to September 28th. We are having that college fair at SUNY Orange in Middletown. That's going to be on April 25th, and that's being sponsored by the Orange County Counselors Association. I know the flyer was a part of the packet that you guys received. This is another opportunity. So we do have a SUNY Orange Instant Admission Day. We have one in the fall, and we have one in the spring. And this actually allows students the opportunity to apply to SUNY Orange with a counselor from SUNY Orange, and they get their decision right there. So it's kind of like not a hands-on, but almost like a guided session where the students can go ahead and apply to SUNY Orange directly. We have our own internal college fair that's going to be on October 12th. And then we also have the Common Scholarship Application Help Session. Again, we offer that to students, usually during 10th period in the library. Okay. Information, organization, proper planning, and communication are critical to the admissions process. We always encourage students to come see us. Things can sort of change from year to year, so that's why it's really important that families and students come see us, because we have usually the most up-to-date information that we can provide to families. Some final recommendations: students should check their email regularly, both school and personal. One of the things that I wanted to highlight, and I did write this down, always make sure that your students are checking their spam folders. A lot of times, some important emails can actually get filtered out and they get sent to the spam folders. So make sure that they're making it a habit of checking their spam folders at least once a week. Students should visit the guidance webpage and Google Classroom often. So we do have a Google Classroom for the class of 2023 in this case. We post opportunities there. Sometimes we'll post scholarships there. And we usually post announcements and things like that. So have your students routinely check that because that's a good source of information. It's recommended that students find a way to organize their dates and deadlines. Obviously, most students use their cell phones to do this. Some students use planners, although that's getting few and far in between. But it is important to make sure that they're on top of deadlines because, like Mr. Batoka mentioned, um, for the most part, these are pretty hard deadlines and there's really no wiggle room with them. Students should start their college applications in August. Again, the conversation should be starting now. Over these next few weeks, they should start thinking about who they're going to ask for letters of recommendation because that becomes a big piece. Individual meetings with counselors should take place as early in the fall as possible to ensure students are prepared for next steps. Students should review components before beginning applications to be sure they have a good understanding of requirements, deadlines, documents needed, and the people they will need assistance from. Another point that I put here on my notes here, if you can have your students remember their passwords for the different accounts, because there's like 3 or 4 different accounts that the students are going to use throughout this process. There's obviously the Common App, there's the College Board, there's Naviance. It just makes the process go a little bit more smooth if they know their passwords. Sometimes we'll call students down and I want to walk them through different things, maybe sending out their SAT scores and things like that. But if they don't know their passwords, then something that we can handle in 10 minutes becomes something that could take a few days. So having their passwords handy, whether it's in their phones or in a planner or just somewhere where they can access, would be really helpful. Okay. Our phone number is right here on the right-hand side. It's 845-615-6120. Again, by calling that number, you'll speak to either Ms. DeSantis or Ms. Gazer, and they'll be more than willing to help you out. But if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. Otherwise, thank you guys for your time, and thank you for coming out tonight. Any questions or? Yes. That's a good question. So the question was, do we provide help with the college essay? That's actually part of the English 12 curriculum, is creating the college essay or drafting their college essay. We usually recommend that students also kind of interact with their English teachers because they're probably the best people that can sort of provide insight and edits and different things to make the college essay sort of what they want it to be. One thing that was not mentioned was there is a word limit on the college essay. I believe it's 650 words, and we have to make sure we stay below that because if you go over that, the Common App actually won't let you submit it. All right, so it's 650 words. So it's not a really lengthy essay. They just have to make sure that they're concise in answering the question that they're choosing. Yes. I believe you can. Yeah. So really, when you're doing the Common App, the purpose of that is that it's one application that gets sent out to all the schools. So really, the student would be choosing one essay, and they would answer that question, and then send that out to various schools. Now, certain colleges and certain majors will require an additional essay. So yes, some colleges will require that the students draft a second essay or maybe even a third. But on the Common App, the student would only be uploading one, and that's the one that they would be sending out to all the colleges. Yes. So FAFSA is federal aid, right? And then the TAP is New York State aid. Okay. Usually when you're completing the FAFSA, it actually links you to the state aid website, and you'll be able to kind of transfer the information from one site to the other. It's pretty helpful in that case. But that's the difference. One is federal and one is state. I heard the first part. For scholarships, do they submit their essay? Is that what you said? It depends. I mean, if it's asking a similar question, then students can for sure tweak it a little bit. And if there's word limits or anything like that, then they just have to sort of edit it. But every scholarship is different. I mean, some ask different questions, and so they have to draft a brand new one. But if it's applicable, yeah, they can absolutely just kind of tweak it and submit the same one. Any other questions? No, there's big. I mean, there's teams. Obviously, there's big teams in the admissions offices, and they're assigned different regions. And yeah, I mean, they review the essay, they review the letters of recommendation. Yeah, admissions counselors. There's a lot of reading involved with admissions counselors for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. The FAFSA opens on October 1st. Yes. Yeah. August 1st is the Common App that opens on. Yep. Yes. I mean, I personally, I used to work in a sort of like an admissions kind of office, like a one-stop shop kind of thing. I would recommend stopping at the admissions office, and maybe getting some information from a counselor who might be available during that time. Sometimes they have ambassadors who are just in the office, and they might just volunteer to give you a tour. So I would always just stop by the admissions office and see if anyone's available, or if not, you can just kind of do a self-guided tour and see if there's any spots on the campus that you would want to see.
Quite honestly, it's better to arrange it. I mean, you can go on their admission page, and then usually have something to arrange a visit, because then they know what major you're interested in. They can have people there available so you can ask questions.
Any other questions?
If you think of something later, you can call.
All right. Thank you guys.
Get home safe.
Yes, get home safe.